Hello everyone. Have you ever noticed how nature isn't truly silent once the fog begins to roll in? And what if the pickup truck parked near your tent wasn't just a vehicle, but the trap itself? Tonight, you'll witness a journey that started as a peaceful escape and became something far beyond reason. Hey, I'm Dylan. Welcome to Nightmare and Fear. If you love spine-chilling, unforgettable horror stories, you're in the right place. I want to reach 500 subscribers. Would you consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and making sure not to listen alone? Because tonight, I had the map spread out on the front seat of my pickup. Most of the old forest roads weren't even on modern maps anymore. But that was the point. I wasn't looking for a marked campsite. I wanted something untouched. Something forgotten. An old ranger site, abandoned for years. Deep in the woods. That's where I was headed. People call it reckless to camp alone. But to me, it's peace. Silence. Just me and the trees. I packed everything I needed, food for a week, a flashlight, my tent, gear, and the will to disappear for a while. I fueled the truck, turned the key, and thought, just nature and me, far away from the world. But maybe, some places are unmapped for a reason. I reached the camp just after 6 in the evening. The forest was too quiet. Unnaturally so. I unloaded the gear, pitched my tent, and by the time the sun dipped behind the trees, the fog had already begun creeping in. That wasn't surprising. Mountain fogs are common. But this one, it was different. Not white, gray. Thick, low, and strange. Then I saw something. Between the trees, just for a second, someone walking in the mist. But when I looked again, nothing. Just my imagination, I whispered. That night, my truck's headlights blinked on and off by themselves. The keys were in my pocket. The next morning, I decided to leave. But the truck wouldn't start. I checked everything. Battery fine. Gas tank full. Wiring intact. No mechanical reason. No explanation. Stay calm, I told myself. Maybe it was just a cold engine. I went for a hike to clear my head. But the fog came back, before noon this time. Thicker. Faster. And this time, there was a voice in it. A whisper. I see you. I ran. Back to camp. Jumped into the truck. Tried the ignition. Instead of the engine turning over, I heard a hum. A low vibration from under the seat. I decided to walk out. But no matter which direction I chose, I kept ending up at the pickup. Over and over again. Even my GPS stopped working. The compass? Spinning uselessly. By midnight, a light turned on behind the truck. My camping lantern. But I hadn't touched it. Then footsteps. Heavy, slow. But no tracks on the ground. And then, bang. Something slammed the tailgate. I turned. No one. But on the windshield, written in the fog, was a message, drawn by invisible fingers. You're not leaving. At sunrise, the truck started on its own. But that wasn't a relief. The engine sounded wrong. Like it was running backward. I popped the hood, and what I saw, it wasn't metal. Something organic pulsed where the engine should have been. Beating like a heart. I slammed the hood shut. The fog was now inside the truck. I opened the doors, it forced me back. The windows steamed up, and in that steam, I swear something looked back at me. Then the pickup began moving. Slowly, rolling forward. No driver. No one behind the wheel. This is day 4. Supplies are low. The truck's still there, but it's changed. Rusted. Tires rotted. It looks like it's been abandoned for years. At night, I hear the engine again. Not from the truck. From the forest. I did something wrong. Maybe this place, this camp, was never meant to be found. Maybe the truck wasn't a tool, but a lure. Maybe this fog is alive. If anyone finds this recording, don't go there. If you see a pickup in the fog, don't get in. Have you ever felt like your vehicle wasn't just carrying you, but something else you didn't invite? What if the empty seat next to you wasn't actually empty? Tonight, we follow a trail into the forgotten Dust Creek campground, where silence isn't peaceful, it's watching. Welcome to Nightmare and Fear. I'm Dylan, and if you enjoy exploring the darker side of the woods, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, keep your eyes on the passenger seat. This is the story of the passenger in the dust. I arrived at Dust Creek Campground just before sunset. It was a place no one talked about anymore. The kind of spot you only hear about through old locals who speak in half sentences and sideways glances. I drove my pickup down 10 miles of dirt trail. No signs, no barriers. Just pine, dust, and silence. There used to be a mining village nearby. Burned down in the 60s. People say it was an accident. But no one ever rebuilt. No one came back. Until me. I wanted the silence. The distance. I was tired of life screaming in my ears. But silence has a sound of its own. That night, as I sat by the fire, I kept glancing at my truck. The driver's side window was fogged up from the inside. Weird. It had been dry all day. I grabbed my flashlight and walked over. I wiped the glass. And that's when I saw it. A handprint. On the inside of the passenger window. I hadn't picked anyone up. I hadn't seen another car in hours. I opened the door. Empty. Cold air rushed out like a breath being held. Then I noticed something in the dirt beside the truck. Bare footprints. Facing the woods. I followed the prints for maybe 20 yards. Then they just stopped. Like the person had vanished mid-step. That's when I heard it. Not an animal. Not a branch snapping. A whisper. Just above my ear. You brought me back. I spun around. Nothing. I ran back to the truck. Slammed the door. Locked it. The engine started on its own. The radio turned on, white noise. Then a voice cut through it. Passenger. Picked up. 12:03 a.m. The clock said 12:03 a.m. At dawn, I tried to leave. I drove straight down the trail I came in on. 10 minutes later, I saw the same crooked tree I had passed before. Another 10 minutes, same tree again. I was going in circles. But I didn't turn the wheel. The truck was driving itself. And every now and then, I'd hear breathing. From the back seat. I checked the mirror, nothing. But every time I looked away, I'd see a smudge reappear on the rear window, like a face pressed against the glass. I finally managed to stop the truck. I jumped out, heart pounding. I was no longer on the dirt road. I was back at the campfire. Exactly how I left it. Still burning. Same wood. As if I'd never left. I opened the truck again. Inside, on the passenger seat, was a photo. Old. Black and white. A man standing next to a truck just like mine. But the face had been scratched out. On the back of the photo, someone had written in faded ink, "Thank you for the ride back." I burned the picture. Packed up my things. Got back into the truck. I was done. No more curiosity. Just wanted to go. The engine roared awake. I hit the gas. But the truck didn't go forward. It reversed. Slowly. Back toward the woods. My hands weren't on the wheel. And then the voice again, this time from the radio and behind my ear. Let's go home. If you find this recording, burn the map that leads to Dust Creek. Don't follow the trail. And if you're ever alone in the woods and you see an old pickup, don't open the passenger door. Because once they ride with you, they never get out. I wasn't planning to camp more than one night. Just a quick escape. A solo reset. I took my pickup and drove 2 hours out to Red Ash Ridge, a high-elevation forest area, with nothing but abandoned ranger towers and burned tree lines. There was a fire there years ago. A bad one. Locals still call it the ridge that breathes. I found a clearing, parked my truck, pitched a tent, and set up the fire before dusk. By the time the first stars appeared, the wind had stopped completely. Not even the trees moved. And then, from the dark, came the first knock. 3 soft taps, on the hood of my pickup. I jumped out of my tent, flashlight in hand. Nobody. No footprints in the pine needles. No animals. I circled the truck. The hood was ice cold. And on the windshield, written with a finger in the dust. Still here. That night, I slept in the back seat. Locked the doors. Left the flashlight in my hand. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching. Like boots. I looked out the window. Just trees. But when I looked at the rearview mirror, someone was standing behind the truck. But they had no face. At sunrise, I decided to find higher ground to get signal. About 200 meters from my site, I found an old ranger observation tower. Its stairs were partially rotted, but I climbed them anyway. Inside was a desk, a shattered radio, and one thing that didn't belong. A photo. Recent. Glossy. Still wet from fog. It was me, standing next to my tent. The problem was, I never took that photo. And I was alone. Written on the back in smudged ink. You're always here. Even when you leave. When I returned to camp, the pickup was running. Engine humming. Headlights on. Doors locked. My keys were in my pocket the whole time. And someone, or something, had left a trail of small pebbles in a circle around the truck. Inside the truck, on the passenger seat, was my sleeping bag. I had left it inside the tent. And wrapped inside the sleeping bag was my phone. Still recording audio. The file name? midnight_knock_002.wave. There was no 001.wave. That night, I listened to the file. Static. Then footsteps. Then a voice. Gravelly. Inhuman. You drove into me. Now I drive into you. Followed by the sound of a knock. Then another. Then a scream, mine. But I never screamed. At least, not yet. The next morning, the trees looked wrong. Like they had shifted positions. And the clearing was different. Bigger. The fire pit was now made of bones. I tried to drive out. The GPS didn't load. The clock reset. Then something came on the radio. Not music. Not voices. It was the sound of me, talking. This is the last time I camp alone. I've never said that out loud. Until now. But the recording was already there. I eventually made it home. Or so I thought. Everything looked normal. Familiar. But the pickup still smelled like smoke. And at night, every now and then, there's a knock on my door. 3 soft taps. Just like before. I look out the window. No one's ever there. But the passenger seat is fogged up. And someone sits there in the reflection. Watching. If you ever camp near Red Ash Ridge, never sleep in the truck. And never answer the knocks. Not even once. Because once you do, they know you're listening. When my friend and I decided to go camping, we chose an old campsite. It was called Drelo Trail, a place erased from maps, not showing up on phones, only mentioned in a dusty old camping guidebook. We drove into the forest with my pickup, but the road kept narrowing. The ground was wet, and in some places, we got stuck in the mud. Eventually, we found a clearing where we could set up camp. There were no signs. No markings. Nothing. The silence of the trees was unsettling. There were no birds. Not even the wind. While setting up the tent, something on the ground caught my eye. An old, yellowed camp map. There was only one thing scribbled on it. There is no return from that trail. Night fell. We started the fire. But there was something constantly moving in the bushes. Not a mouse or a fox. Something, taller, quieter. At 11:12 p.m., the light inside my pickup came on by itself. The key was still in my pocket. I walked towards the truck, flashlight in hand. I looked inside. Someone was sitting in the back seat. I opened the door quickly. It was empty. But there were wet footprints on the seat. Mud. Barefoot. My friend said, "Let's leave in the morning." But I couldn't stop thinking about that forgotten trail on the map. I made a mistake. I went alone. Just a flashlight and a small walkie-talkie. The trail started off like any other. But the trees began to change. They were all bent the same way, like something had passed through and pressed them down. Then I saw something on the ground. My camp chair. I had left it back at the camp. I walked closer. There was a note pinned to the chair. "You haven't come back, but I remember you." When I got back to camp, the pickup was running. Engine humming. Headlights on. Doors locked. My keys were still in my pocket the whole time. Only one thing had changed. The mirror was on the ground. I looked at my reflection. But it wasn't me. It was wrong. My face was empty. My eyes were black. My mouth wasn't there. A tapping came from the rear window. 1, 2, 3. I forced myself to start the engine. When the headlights turned on, there was a figure in front of the truck. Holding a camp lantern, their face was in shadow. In their hand was a burned camp map. At 3 a.m., I thought I had escaped the forest. But in front of me was the same clearing. The same rocks. The same camp map. And the pickup was still there. But I was inside it. I looked at myself. My eyes were closed. It was like the new person wasn't me. I had stayed here. I never left. The walkie-talkie crackled. "Welcome to Drelo. The trail you take has no return. If you're listening to this recording, do not follow the trail. Do not trust the maps. And never look at the back seat of your truck. Because once you've come, someone else will stay in your place."